Welcome to the October 17th meeting of the Board of Directors of MSAD 75. Before we begin, I'd like to note if anyone wishes to speak, I would ask them to sign the sign-up sheet. With that, we will move on to roll call.
Bart Beatty,
Present.
Andy Megan,
Present.
Molly Cannon,
Present.
David's absent. Tommy
Present.
Gonzalez,
Present.
Gregory Greenleaf,
Present.
Hudson Hayward,
Present.
Harry Hobson.
Here.
Haley Kulis,
Here.
Ryan Larson,
Here.
Dalton,
Present.
Kim Pacelli,
Here.
Edie Spelke,
Here.
Frank Wright.
Present.
Join me for the pledge of pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
That was
Next, we will consider action relative to additions and adjustments to the agenda. I have a few I'd like to note. I would like to move item 6.10 to the end of the evening, as that is an executive session that will not have any action following it. You will have noted we did get an issued adjustments related to the text of item 6.6, and in addition to the superintendent's report. And I would also like to add a section 7.6 to hear a report on the October 16th Mary Meeting Adult Education Advisory Board meeting. And that, unless anyone has
So moved.
moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. I would like to have a moment of silence in memory of Chris Hodgson, the administrative assistant in the district office, Special Services Department from 1993 to 2005. Thank you. Moving on to board announcements and correspondence. Seeing none, we will move on to a report from the students who are not here. So we'll move right on to item number 4. Consider action relative to accepting as printed the minutes of recent meetings of regular board meetings. And those were on August 8th, September 5th, September 19th, and October 3rd. And I would, if anyone has any non-substantive edits that are just typos or whatever, you can get them to me, but otherwise I would consider a motion to move the slate.
So moved. Second.
Seconded, any questions? All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. No old business, so we will move on to new business to hear a presentation on the STEM workforce ready by Corey Calderwood and Chris Hoffman.
All right. Feels like the fastest we've made it to new business since a long time since I've been here. We weren't prepared to go so quickly. No, I think happy to be with you. Corey and I were just chatting. And I just want to share this little fun fact that we just made the connection that we were both student representatives on this board once upon a time. So you're hearing from those who came before you in some weird way.
So
Yeah.
it's a launching pad of.
Now look
many
at
great
you, we're
Yeah,
gonna
careers,
get you.
I
exactly. Look
believe.
how far we've come. Anyway, yes, we're here to share a brief presentation about STEM Workforce Ready initiative that our school and district has signed on to. And just give you a little bit of background about what this is, and then we'll walk you through the presentation that was provided to you in your packet. We hope that came to you. So really, this is a project, a statewide project throughout Maine, Workforce Ready, that we were invited to join last school year. It was probably in maybe March that we first were invited. Project was in its first year last year and is now in its second year, but has welcomed a number of new school districts this school year. And as you'll learn, it's really intended to create a network of collaboration across the state, specifically with rural school districts in mind. We'll get into this, but we are perhaps the least rural of the districts in the initiative, but we were invited to participate, and as a result now have a network of new connections for learning about best practices in and really what's working on the ground in classrooms across the state of Maine for engaging students in STEM teaching and learning. And Corey has done much of the heavy lifting associated with the project. And so I'll let her maybe share a little bit more about where this came from originally from your lens, but also what it is and what we've done so far.
So this is kind of guided by Maine Mathematics and Science Alliance, so MMSA, and then it is funded, and the larger, more national project is funded through the Harold Alfund Family Foundation, and with the ultimate goal of creating with intention a STEM workforce graduating class in 2030. So it's kind of a statewide goal that then they want to replicate throughout the nation. So part of the relationship we have as a district with the Workforce Ready team and MMSA is to provide a research relationship. We're learning from them what we can do to bring computer science into our classrooms, curriculum, pre-K through 12, making sure that we're providing our students with the skills and the competencies they need to be workforce ready, with the kind of understanding that every job in 2030 is going to require a significant amount of STEM skills and competencies to be ready. So in return for what we get from being a part of this alliance and group is that what they get in return is that we respond to them about how we're seeing what we're learning and what we're implementing in our district actually like achieve toward that goal. So one of the things that we're responsible for is monthly meetings with the whole consortium. And some conferences and learning opportunities, workshops, things like that. And then one of the things that we provide back to them is lesson reflections. So I just did one. So I learned something from being a part of this group. I brought it into the classroom, saw it implemented, saw it happen, and then provided them with research, my data as research back to them that they can use to bring that to other districts, other classrooms, as this project expands. So so there are 14 districts currently. We're one of the first high schools that have been brought into the project, which is really exciting. There's relationships not only with Maine Mathematics and Alfund, but Educate Maine, as well as all of these kind of robust districts that we're actively and monthly connecting with, communicating with, and networking with.
Yeah, and so Corey and I both, in terms of our actual relationship with other districts, Corey and I attended a 2-day conference at the Schoodic Institute in August, where we were, in person able to connect with the 14 other districts. In the packet, you hopefully see a map of where those places are. We are the southernmost district included in the project. It was fun to connect with, our closest neighbor school is Lincoln Academy in Newcastle, Damascotta. But we connected with districts up the coast and in Western Maine who have already been engaging in computer science instruction and could offer us, not that we haven't been doing those things necessarily, but they've already been a part of the project and learning from each other in this way. And we've had just one monthly meeting since then. I think we have our second beginning of next week, where again, each of those monthly meetings is a combination of business to share opportunities as well as actual professional learning. Each of our monthly meetings includes about, 20 to 30 minutes of teachers sharing the actual lessons that they're doing so that we can immediately implement those things.
Yeah, which like we are in the classroom, I'm actively doing. I learned something last month that then I immediately brought into my classroom. So just that alone has been really great. So what does it mean to be workforce ready, STEM workforce ready? That is, so it means a lot, right? And we are doing, as a district, we're doing some of this. Part of being a part of this project and this group is to use our 3 years as a part of this project to really be intentional and really think about exactly how we're teaching computer science and computational thinking skills and preparing all of our students to be STEM workforce ready. So that includes all kinds of things like having a sense of digital vocabulary, having a strong sense of your digital literacy, your idea of a digital citizenship. What does that mean? Your digital portfolio, how you are projecting your professional self and personal self out there into the world. And then is those nitty gritty nuts and bolts of just basic digital skills and knowing how to use digital tools. Ultimately, the big thing is shifting or reframing some of the work we're already doing. We talk a lot about critical thinking and how important that is. STEM workforce ready to be that is to incorporate our students and our teachers in computational thinking. So this is really that idea of, in addition to critical thinkers, we want critical thinkers to be thinking of questions and how to solve problems. Computational thinking is at another level that says, how are we going to look at real problems and come up with a plan to solve them using computational thinking? So so if we go on to the next here, so how do we do that? If we have a problem, whether it's a big problem or a small problem, computational thinking, I'm identifying patterns, I'm actively evaluating what's my problem, how do I solve it? I'm doing some active research. I'm thinking about algorithms, step-by-step directions for how to solve those problems. I'm actively using logic, decomposition, which is a huge thing. What can I take away? What can I leave behind and move forward? Abstraction. And then that's applied actively in a classroom that isn't necessarily teaching computer science. Right? These skills, these are both hard and soft skills that are applicable throughout our curriculum. So one of the first goals that we have for our district this year is to help particularly our teachers have a clear understanding and definition of what computational thinking is and how they're actually already teaching those skills in their classrooms. So a lot of our first year is helping teachers identify what they're already doing well and where we are already teaching these skills and preparing our graduates to be STEM workforce ready. So we're going to do that in a couple of different ways, right? So we have these active meetings that we meet with all 14 districts, and in MSAD, we meet as a district team as well to kind of check where we are in our goals and our first year goals. One of our responsibilities is to invite neighboring districts who are not part of the team or the Workforce Ready program to come to professional development opportunities that we sponsor. Right. So it's not really about like recruitment. We're just, again, we are like a district hub now, and we're actively involved in this work. and we're going to host a professional development opportunity. And our part of our agreement with Workforce Ready is that we're going to invite the closest districts to join us so that we can share that knowledge and all of the exciting things we're doing. So we're doing that in a couple of different ways on this in the school level. But the exciting thing is we are planning, our community is surrounded by amazing STEM focused companies. Like we're actually really, for where we are, not being so far down south, we are surrounded by some amazing technology, STEM focused companies and businesses right here. So what we're planning is a STEM job fair here at the high school. It would be an evening event where some of the relationships we already have with BIW, with Crooker, with Tyler Technologies, and then our relationship with Corey King, who runs what's he done?
the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah,
the Regional Chamber.
So particularly, he's a great network resource for us for all of the really amazing businesses that are happening at the Brunswick Landing. So we are planning that for January, and that will be an opportunity for students, for parents, for community members, and for these other districts to be specifically invited in to that. The other thing that we're doing this first year is developing a STEM map for our current district, pre-K through 12, of where we are teaching computer science skills and direct instruction. So that will be one of our goals for this first year, is to get that mapped out, to then in our second year identify where we can bridge some of those gaps so that we have a continuum of computer science, direct instruction, and these computational skills. And then our third year, which is that we would implement wherever those gaps, or start to implement wherever those gaps are, so that by the end of the time we're in our project close to our graduating 2030 class, we would be able to say as a district, we are teaching computer science and computational skills to make our graduates workforce ready throughout our district, throughout our curriculum.
Well, I think we went a little out of order of some of the information in the packet, but that's what it is. That's what we're up to. And we wanted to share that and see if you had any questions.
Jim, I had a feeling I'd see your hand.
I had the opportunity, and I'll report later on the ACTM conference, but had the opportunity to sit in the presentation around this project. And when the slide came up, which showed the workforce, what employers are looking for, I had to reflect on how many of them go directly to the guiding principles. That while everything's tied to standards, the big picture, and having spent a decade in Apple, there are not too many, but there are many people who can code, but it is the application of it in real world projects. So it is the changes. What I will look forward to are the changes, and I think you've mentioned how to really make it happen across the curriculum. That it's not your job. You're the computer person. I'm not a computer person. I'm a teacher. That it pervades in a healthy way, but a change not just in the content delivered, but the pedagogical change to really get it done is going to be significant.
Yeah, and if I could just share something that Corey didn't share. One of the courses that Corey's teaching at the high school this year is an Introduction to Innovation, a course that we proposed last year, and that is a concurrent enrollment course. Students can earn credit through the University of Maine through it. And it's through that course that a lot of these concepts are already in play in this school. But just to sort of provide a concrete example of what you're talking about, I got to observe Corey's class / play Willy Wonka for a day. Groups in the class were tasked with creating a new candy product to bring to market. And again, at face value, not a task that necessarily involves computer science, but from that pitch, students ultimately have to develop a complete understanding of all of the design process elements and problem solving that might allow them to bring that product eventually to market. My favorite, the winner from my perspective, was a pre-packaged 6-pack of s'mores that could allow you to, have the outdoor s'more experience, but perhaps in your office.
It was a great lesson. They did such a good job. It's so fun. Yes, so any other?
This is very exciting. I have to say, for whatever reason, I have gone to the adult ed workshop that I was just recently at, and I was part of the having people belong, school belonging, I think, anyway. But anyway, it just seems like all of this is coming together because there are so many organizations in our community at the Brunswick Landing and everything that are really in the Voc 10 thing, exploring new ways to get involved in this getting ready for our future workforce. And I just think that there's like one of the things last night they were talking about, it was at the adult ed thing where they have this whole multilingual community that is right there at Brunswick Landing. And they have this whole transition to college program, which I actually was not familiar with. But it's, I guess they're LL Beans. But anyway, they have all of these pieces that they have trying to get people ready for that adult world, and the new jobs that are coming. So, and you're right, this is, in this area, there's just so much going on, and it's so exciting to watch it. And I'm just very excited to see, and you being the hub, I think is so exciting that now you're getting in on the ground floor, so you're developing all these pieces. So I am very excited to see where this goes, because I think there's so much potential here. It's awesome. So thank you.
Because one of the things about it is it's not bringing computer science and computational thinking into the district in an intentional way with all teachers pre-K through 12. It's not about a list of skills that I have to acquire or prove that I'm competent on. It really is about thinking about being competent with problem solving, being competent with new technology, being competent with the skills that you have and being able to replicate in multiple formats. Like that's really what it is. It's not like I can promise that the kid is going to be ready for electrical engineering. No, but can I promise that the kid is going to has enough skills to go into that field because they practice those skills with us? Yeah, that's the point.
It's very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Gregory?
I see in our high school curriculum that we have computer science as an elective course. And I was wondering if this initiative warrants what new courses might be coming. Like I'm looking at AP computer science, and a student who passes that gets an introductory college course, 1 semester in computer science credit. So basically my question is, does this new initiative foresee some new advanced classes coming for the high school?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. It's both the potential for more, discrete and specific practice in the field of computer science through something like advanced courses, as well as the, conceptual spread of ideas like computational thinking across our curriculum.
So one of the goals that we have specifically, we're going to use some of our safe professional development time. So one of our goals is that at least all the teachers in the high school and the middle school who we're kind of really focusing on this year will have heard that term computational thinking, be able to define it and be able to say, relates to something I am doing in my classroom. So that's another goal that we have, so that at the end of the year, every teacher is like, oh, I know exactly what computational thinking is and what it looks like in my classroom, in my practice.
Frank?
Yeah, I really applaud this. This is great. And your listing of concepts is wonderful, but the approaches also are great. Because most of this type of thinking requires that process of tinkering and creating and debugging what you've done, and then preserving what is good, and then, but also collaborating together. And this is good stuff. This is good thinking process.
I just want to second that and say, this is good stuff. I think Frank said it pretty perfectly. But it's also really exciting to me to see the enthusiasm you guys are bringing to us. And I also get excited knowing that like this ties into some of the district goals that we workshopped so hard this spring and into the summer. And so it feels really gratifying to see things come together and with a long looking vision to the future. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it just you two, or do you have a bigger team working on it?
No, I think our team includes Amanda and Nick at the district level. In our school, it includes our community pathways coordinator, Doug Ware. And we're sort of actively adding to our team. We're actively adding to that team as well. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and expanding into the middle school next year. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Anyone else? Well, obviously lots of enthusiasm. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Hey, that was awesome. All right, tough act to follow. The next thing is an overview by Assistant Superintendent Amanda Hersey on Tier 1, 2, and 3 of the Maine Model School Support. Maine's model of school support.
Hello. Okay, wait a second here. So I gotta go in and sign in again. Never mind. Definitely not gonna be as interesting as that. That was a tough act to follow. It really is not going to be as interesting that, but I'll try. I will try to make it interesting. So I think it was a few meetings ago, I had come and asked for a board member to join the Harpswell School Improvement Team because they were identified at the state level as a Tier 3 school. And then I didn't go into a lot of detail about what that meant, but I'm here tonight to talk about what that means. And it's nuanced. So it's going to be a fairly text-heavy conversation, but we'll hopefully have a better understanding of what that all is by the end of this presentation. So Maine has, is in statute, something called the Maine Schools Accountability Model, and it goes all the way back in history to 1965, when there was legislation passed called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We use the ESEA acronym a lot. That's what it stands for. Longstanding legislation that provided, it was a step for the federal government to provide equal access to education, specifically low-income families. to close the achievement gap. And it's really when we saw Title I funding come from the federal government. That was, oops. This is going to be familiar to many of you. In 2001, the ESEA legislation was reauthorized and became familiar to everybody, called the No Child Left Behind Act. And when that came into legislation, there was attached to that an accountability system that the federal government said, okay, states, you need to come up with a way to hold schools accountable for growth and achievement. And there were lots of different things that the state of Maine did for that. However, in 2015, that was reauthorized again. And now it's called the Every Student Succeeds Act. So the acronyms ESEA and ESSA are very confusing, but we're really talking about the same thing. So sometimes we'll call it ESSA, sometimes we'll call it ESEA, but what happened in 2015 was the Every Student Succeeds Act gave a little bit more control to the states. So the state of Maine put into place an accountability model that gave us a little, or gave the state a little bit more leeway to have a number of conditions factor into accountability rather than just a state assessment. And so the state of Maine did that. So now we have academic standards and an accountability system in the state that considers other factors besides the state assessment, graduation rates, chronic absenteeism, and student growth on that assessment. And they've just given us a little bit more flexibility in our schools, how we address the issues of any challenges that are there. So everything that I'm going to talk to you tonight about is public information, and it's on the Maine Department of Ed dashboard, data dashboard. But I do want to reference that the model that the state uses, there is a PDF on that. It's 194 pages long. You're free to read that. I'm going to do a really high overview of that 194 page, but it's the data dashboard is really that is one measure of accountability that the state has said we are going to do this to meet the mandate of that federal legislation. And so a lot of the accountability factors are right on that data dashboard. So accountability factors that we as a school are measured on are chronic absenteeism, and that would be a student who's absent for 10 or more of their enrolled days. Academic achievement and growth. And right now, the Department of Ed is using the Maine through-year assessment. Because we haven't had the assessment very long, the achievement right now is based on the state standard or the state average. Next year, that will change, and it will be school averages. And then growth is determined by the NWEA growth norms. And there's in this document that's 194 pages long, there's 5 pages of algorithms around how they get to that growth model. But basically, they have projected out, they've looked at our current growth model around the NWEA growth norms, projected out where they want the students to be in 2030, and they have created cut points for us to move toward. They're incremental with the goal of by 2030, there would be a 10% gain across the state. And graduation rate is considered as one of those accountability factors. It began at 86%, and similar to the growth rate, the state has created a plan to move to 90% by the year 2030. And then very important to this conversation tonight is that The accountability plan includes specific student populations. So they look at a variety of subgroups, including economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, English learners, and then there's a number of racial and ethnic subgroups that are broken out. And that's important to tonight's conversation because the data is very nuanced and it can be a subgroup that is flagged as with emerging needs and meeting growth and achievement. So yes. So here are the levels of support that the state gives a school. So there's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We have schools in each one of these tiers. We have 2 schools in tier 1, 2 schools in tier 2, and 1 school in tier 3. At this point in time, none of our schools are receiving assistance from the Department of Ed. There are some schools in the state that are tier 3 schools and they receive sometimes extra money and then a school coach that's assigned to their school from the Department of Ed. We don't have any of that in place because there are so many schools in the state that have been identified in these tiers that we are outside, all of our schools are outside of the 5% rule that the state has in place right now. Yeah, so there's a reference here to state supports, but we are not receiving any of those state supports. So a tier 1 school, you'll see that 1 or more student populations are experiencing challenges, and the student populations are the groups I just referred to: economically disadvantaged, special needs, or students with disabilities, and then some demographic groups. A tier 2 school would be 1 or more of the same student population consistently for 3 years. So it takes 3 years to become a tier 1 or 2 school, and it takes 3 years to, what I say, come off it. And it would mean, so 3 years to get on, 3 years to come off a tier. You can move within the tiers. But you'll see in a minute, I'll show you some of our school profiles, and we have meeting and excelling indicators, but we're still in those tiers because we need to show that for 3 years running. And then the tier 3 supports is that there's indicators where all student population are experiencing challenges for more than 3 years. So we're going to start with a really easy one. Before I do that, I do want to tell you that we have performance ratings that are also assigned to us. I just referred to a few of those: emerging, developing, meeting, and excelling. So typically emerging and developing categories would flag us to be in one of those tiers. Again, this is all right on the data dashboard. I've come a couple times to the board and presented information that was on this dashboard. And if you were to go to the dashboard at any time, it's the main model of school supports tab that you would click on. This is not an easy site to maneuver around, so I just took screenshots for us to look at tonight. And we're going to start with an easy one, which is Bowdoinham. Bowdoinham was identified as a tier 1 school. And you'll see the categories that I had talked about. Here's the emerging, developing, meeting, excelling, chronic absenteeism, and then growth and achievement for ELA, growth and achievement for math. So those are our measurements. For a school to become flagged as a tiered school, we need to have emerging needs with chronic absenteeism and academic progress or achievement challenges in ELA, or those 2 factors also in math. So for Bowdoinham, we have some challenges here with chronic absenteeism. So that would mean that all those student subgroups that I had referred to earlier, all of them have absenteeism rates of 10% or higher. And then there are likely, or there is, a subgroup of students in the ELA achievement and growth areas. So I have come to you with our, showing you our scores in relation to the state scores, and we are always above the state scores. But this would be a specific subgroup, economically disadvantaged, or one of those other subgroups. But it is the chronically absent category. It has to be here and. So this is really the category that we want to talk a lot about in our communities. We are now at Mount Ararat Middle School. They are also a Tier 1 school. And you'll see way up here in the corner that they were actually identified in 2018-19. This conversation gets even a little bit more confusing because we had identifications in 2018-19, stopped identifying in 1920 because of the pandemic. So the state submitted a waiver to the federal government because we switched our assessments, and we actually didn't start identifying again until 22-23. So even though this is a snapshot of what's currently happening, this is going all the way back to 2018-19. So at the middle school, again, we've concerns with chronic absenteeism. And then there is likely there is one of those subgroups that I had referred to that are experiencing challenges with growth and achievement in math and reading. This is Woodside, and Woodside looks a little bit different because Woodside is a Tier 2 school, and that does mean that for 2 years running, there has been a student subgroup that has had challenges. Woodside has, you'll notice, at one point in time, did have emerging concerns with chronic absenteeism, but they have changed that. So in previous years, they had chronic absenteeism, but they've obviously been working on that, but they won't move out of Tier 2 until they've had 3 years of no subgroups being identified as emerging. So good work to Woodside because they are no longer battling with last year, they moved out of concerns with the chronic absenteeism. And you'll see that we have meeting and excelling in achievement. It's a great looking profile. And the high school has also made great gains. You'll see that there's chronic absenteeism concern, but then no other subgroups are flagged there. And they also have likely moved some of those subgroups to excelling in meeting. Harpswell is a Tier 3 school. Again, chronic absenteeism. And then because they're a Tier 3, it means they've had 3 years running with one specific subgroup having emerging needs in ELA and math, growth and achievement. So what is very important to note is that our state assessments are on a 3-year contract, and they just put out an RFP for a new assessment publisher. So it will likely change, although the accountability measures will stay in place, it will change the scores that we're working with. And we'll either stall these like we did in 2018-19, or we'll start new ones. But the DOE is submitting an amendment to the current ESCA plan because of that. So we don't really know where that's going to go. And then it will change again because beginning in 2024-25, so this school year, we're no longer going to be using the state average. We're going to be using our own student data. That'll be great, but it does mean there'll be yet another shift in what that data looks like. Yes.
Yeah, so are we going to look at one student data cut 1 year, and then we're going to change the assessment and not have?
Correct. Correct. So what does it mean for us? We're going to always honor all of our students, all of the work they're doing, all of the data they're giving us. We're going to honor all of that work. We're always going to continue to implement our targeted interventions. The board has created a goal to focus on creating an MTS, a multi-tiered system of support framework. That's a great goal that will continue to allow us to focus on this. Our district has a very new, exciting data dashboard that the tech department has been instrumental in helping us move forward. And what it does mean is that it's going to be our own data dashboard, but it will help us look at our children our students as whole children. We'll see their data that we collect in a number of ways all in one place. And so it will help teams look at students and assess where they are in terms of their own developmental needs. We have an ELA and math review committee up and running. We'll always look at our curriculum needs. We're going to continue to offer professional development. And the work of the school belonging committee will really help us create those safe and welcoming spaces to address some of those chronically absent students. What it means for you here tonight is that any school that's in a tier status has to write or maintain a school-wide improvement plan. And this is a very lengthy document, but it's good work. But by statute, the team at that school needs to include at least one board member. And basically these teams will look at the root cause and analyze that data, look at the root cause for it, and then make some considerations. That may include budget considerations, definitely some community awareness around chronic absenteeism, some of those initiatives that might happen at the school. They're probably not, it's probably not a huge commitment. Heidi will talk about that a little bit more for the next agenda item. But it is in statute that we need to have one of those teams. The school's already doing that work, but we have to formalize it in a school improvement plan. Because I've been talking about tiered statuses and how the ESEA legislation impacted Title I, it's common that I get questions about how does that accountability model affect our ESEA budget and the grants that we get within our ESE grants. The two are not connected in any way. No matter a school's status in one of those tiers, it does not affect any funding at all. So in our ESEA grant, we have a budget for Title I, and that is to address any, or similar to the very first slide I showed, it's to address free and reduced lunch, or students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and then any marginalized population for McKinney-Vento, homeless, or students in foster care. We also receive Title IIA money, which is money dedicated to schools so that we can maintain highly qualified staff. And then we also receive Title IV money, which is to maintain safe and healthy schools. Title I eligibility is always a question. And Title I eligibility is determined by free and reduced lunch rates, although we don't have any free and reduced, all lunch is free. So it has changed the way we collect that information. Right now, we are collecting that information through something called direct certification. And direct certification happens when a family applies for assistance at the state level. We don't know any of that. We don't get that information, but the state tracks it back to the schools. And they report to us what those direct cert numbers are. So it does eventually turn into what we used to consider free and reduced status. And we collect that information. We find the average for the district. And then any schools that are above that average are eligible for Title I services. So unfortunately, Woodside did not meet that eligibility this year because those rates at Woodside fell below the district average. That doesn't happen immediately. It's usually a year out. The state recognizes that they don't want to just pull that money from a school, and they allow you to grandfather in a school for 1 year. So we knew that Woodside was grandfathered in. We were hoping that the new numbers that came in would help them be eligible again, but they were not. So they have lost eligibility. It does not mean that we lose grant funding. The grant funding has always stayed the same. It rarely moves or changes. So for Title I, you'll see we get a little more than 490,000, Title II, 100,000, Title IV, 50,000. A school's tier status does not alter that funding. And even though Woodside was no longer eligible, we still received the same amount of money. Then we just dispersed it out to 3 schools instead of 4. And we disperse it out by rank and distribution. So the school with the highest average of students who are eligible for free and reduced or direct cert receives the most money, and then the other schools are ranked accordingly. Right now, Bowdoin Central is the highest ranking school, so they receive the most Title I money, then Bowdoinham, and then Harpswell. It had been Woodside as the 4th, but that money is now spread to the other three schools. So we didn't lose funding. We still got the same amount of money, just dispersed it differently to those 3 schools. Yes.
With your discussion of the grandfather money, the upcoming budget year, there will be less money with only 3 schools qualifying for Title I?
You mean less than this 490,000-ish?
Yeah.
No, we will still receive the same amount of money. That is determined at the state level, but because our enrollment doesn't change that much, and because the demographics in the area around free and reduced don't change that much, we rarely see shifts in this money unless there's big changes at the federal level and they're releasing less money to the schools. It's rare that we would see a change so dramatic that we wouldn't be able to offer services. But it does come up, that does come up often during the budget season. Because as we consider the district budget, we have to be careful not to use grant money to supplant positions in the budget or materials or resources. So we would not be able to use, for example, we have interventionists in all of our schools. We would not be able to use Title I money to pay for one of those interventionists in one school and not all the others. We have to establish equal staffing and then use Title I to supplement it. So I often have people ask me, well, if a school isn't eligible for Title I, can't we provide more services to that school? That would be supplant, not supplement. So I've talked too much. What kind of questions do you have? Yes, Mary. Oh, I'm sorry. that's not, I shouldn't,
I'm just trying to figure out the fact that, I mean, in a way, it's a good thing that Woodside is not eligible, just because obviously there's less of the need there, which is kind of a good thing when you look at it, but the other piece of it is, so if they have a Title I person assigned to that school and they lose that funding, that Title I person, they still have the original funding, they still have the same amount of, so that Title I person then would go to a different school? Is that how that
yes,
works? Okay.
yes, that's exactly how it worked. And I don't want to see that Woodside didn't have the need. They didn't meet the criteria of the legislation from 1965 that was put into place and saying that schools with the highest need of economically disadvantaged students would receive that money. I think Woodside would say, no, we really did need that. But it's just that they didn't meet that criteria of the grant. But yes, so we didn't lose the money. Like we didn't lose that amount of money that was dedicated to Woodside. We had to use that money in a different location in the district. Like I said, Bowdoin is the highest receiver for on rank and distribution. So the money was dispersed to Bowdoin, then Bowdoin-Ham, then Harpswell. So that person did get reassigned. Yeah. So Amy, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be
Oh.
calling on people or you are.
I trust you to do it. We can go back to
Okay.
our horseshoe, I
Sorry,
guess.
Haley.
But I was gonna ask
Oh,
you,
let me
does
get
that
there.
mean you can't use the funding for anything that's sort of a district-wide use?
So for Title II, we can use funding for district-wide use. For Title I, no, that has to be spent at the school that is identified as Title I. Sorry. I didn't mention the whole reason I came here tonight was because that conversation started with Harpswell requesting to be a whole school, Title I school. And that changes the way the school can deliver services. A whole school model does mean that staff can move among all students at that school rather than just students who are identified with Title I. So the funding within that school might change a little bit, but no, we can't use Title I funding at a district level.
You can go ahead and call on people.
Okay, Haley.
I was just wondering, was Williams Cone not included because they're not tiered status?
I did, yes, I should have given everybody Williams Cone and Bowdoin. They are not in a tier status,
Okay.
correct? But you could go onto that data dashboard that I showed you and see those report cards. Yes, sorry. I should have included everybody.
My question, Amanda, is about the establishment of the application of the tiers and the establishment of the committees. Is this new work for the district because the designations have just come out, or are these committees already in progress, or?
Yeah, a lot of this was already in progress. And the school plans, the Title I schools have those school plans established and they do that work all throughout the year. They meet with school teams, they continue that work. So this isn't really new and different to us. Every 5 years, the district needs to submit a comprehensive needs assessment where each one of those schools has done that plan anyway. There was a hold on that during COVID, so the 5 years hasn't come around yet. But it's an arduous document that the principals are completing. Mr. Hoffman can talk a little bit about that. It's a lengthy work. But it's work that principals are already doing at their school. They're already looking at this data. They're already putting in some, they're already implemented potentially curriculum changes, initiatives with interventions, definitely outreach with chronic absenteeism. Our principals know, exactly who those students are, how they're dealing with that. We just have to formalize it into one full document. And we actually don't send it to the state, but we need to have it on the ready if they were to ask for it. So I don't want to say it's not work for the principals because it's a lot of work for the principals, but it's work that they're already doing in their schools. Because it's a lot of work and they work hard, and that's why that work is probably being done. Jim?
Amanda, in a couple of your last slides, you went, am I correct? You went back to using ESEA? Is ESSA the current terminology? Or
Yes. ESEA is the founding legislation that gets reauthorized.
and it continues to be reauthorized. It has not been
Yes.
supplanted by ESSA.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes. So for example, No Child Left Behind was one of those reauthorizations. ESSA replaced that.
so in looking at some, and I saw it in some of the screenshots you shared, but I went in to look at Bowdoin Central.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges in NCLB was the demand for constant improvement. And so that when you got to the top, you were punished because there was no place left to go on top. So in looking at Bowdoin Central, there is emerging academic progress in language, reading, and arts, and emerging in mathematics, but both attainments are excelling.
Correct.
Have they fixed the flaw of that was rampant in?
Yeah. It's a tricky, the growth model can be tricky, because once you're kind of topped off at that is why some schools move in and out of those tiers so frequently. It's very incremental, but if schools have a year of a lot of growth, then the following year, they'll move back into that tier.
Can make it tough.
So we definitely honor that growth model, but when it's a school average or a state average, it's not quite as easy as it is when it's just the student in front of you. And that really is the message for all of our families and all of our teachers, is that we're still teaching the students in front of us. This is it's great to have this. We know that we're in this, dance with school accountability, and we do have work to do, especially with chronic absenteeism. That's loud and clear. So that type of reflection and that type of root cause analysis is what will happen at the school, but we can see that pretty clearly as a district as well. Yes, that's
We had a conversation about this in the policy committee meeting, and I was curious if you were aware of any conversation at the state level about like reassessing what chronic absenteeism is, because post-COVID, parental and student habits about going to school sick are very different.
Yes.
And I think that's, across the board, it's not just in SAD 75, but I feel like that standard is harder than ever to uphold under the conditions we're all living in day to day. So, I mean, we have no control over the state, but has there been any sense that they're looking at that, or?
There has not been that I know of. But in looking at the amount of schools, I have not been through every school's profile, but there's a large amount of schools that are dealing with the same challenges we are right now with chronic absenteeism. And yeah, it's definitely changed, hasn't it? Because it changed the way we come to school if we're sick.
And it feels like we don't want to say, hey, send your kid to school sick.
Right.
Like that doesn't seem like the advice we're actually trying to go after. But
Right.
but these standards almost suggest that is in fact what they expect us to do.
Yes. And we do, Chris can help with this. It does impact, right? Students coming to school every day impacts their success. It all is intertwined, but Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, like, I think it's a fair question. And no, we don't want kids coming to school sick. But we want kids coming to school.
Yeah.
And I think we need as much help as we can get reminding our families that the model of education we strive to we strive to provide relies on quality in-person instruction, classroom experiences, interactions between students and teachers in our classroom. I think even more than perhaps encouraging families to be wary of sending their children to school related to illness, I think COVID changed mindsets about what education is and perhaps encouraged people to see it as a transactional thing that is possible anywhere at any time. And certainly, we can do our very best to make learning happen in lots of settings, but we're primarily set up to provide in-class, in-school learning experiences. And we need as much help as we can get reminding families to get their kids here.
And I would just, I'll reiterate, because I agree with that, right? Like, we're set up to deliver the best educational experiences with an enriching in-person experience. And I agree completely. That's what we want kids to have. So, yeah.
Holly?
So 2 questions. I was looking at the district as a whole, and I'm noticing that we're doing really well with achievement, but not with progress in both the mathematics and ELA sections. And is that, like, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what the difference is between the emerging, the progress versus achievement? And it seems like it has a lot to do with the testing, right? Or what we're holding the kids accountable to for the standard.
So with achievement, the assessment's administered, the state gathers all that data. They create an average and they look at where we are on that average. So for most of our schools, if not all of them, we scored higher than the state average. For growth, again, the state took the average, looked at where would we be if we wanted to have 10% improvement by 2030, and then created an algorithm. If our students didn't make that growth, or if they did make the growth, there's a score that's given to students, but it's not their own growth. It's the growth against the state average. So I think next year or this year, when we see that growth reflected on that actual student, we're going to see some changes in that data, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I have another part, but Mary, if you want to go first.
Go. Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. And so I think just a kind of caveat to all of this in terms of the absenteeism, I'm just going to keep echoing the mental health impacts of COVID on the students, and wondering if, like, I have all these like lovely ideas around mental health days for the kids and all this other fun stuff, but I recognize there's professional development days and things like that. But I'm wondering, instead of just giving kids like the day off, if there could be maybe more targeted focus around self-care or getting them out and doing things. Because I know mental health for kids in the state is struggling so hard, and I would not be surprised if that is a big portion of why absenteeism is also on the rise as well. So that's just my soapbox.
Mary?
So I just, this is maybe a silly question, but in a way, like, if you have a high amount of achievement, then your growth percentage will be lower, because you can only get to the top. And if you're almost at the top, so you're not going to be able, that growth is going to be less than if you were at the bottom, because you get 10, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, anyway, that's part of what
Thank you all.
Dr. Hershey, that was a lot to think about.
Sorry.
So next on the agenda is for Heidi to explain what we need board members to do.
Thank you. And Amanda, that was awesome. You did phenomenal. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Chris, thank you for your comments as well. Always good. So for, what we're looking to do is to appoint a separate board member to each of these towns. We already have Harpswell covered. I believe Gregory is on that committee. And Amanda spoke a little bit about it. These meetings are possibly one, maximum 2 times a year. So it's not a huge commitment, but it's a little bit of a commitment. And so while we call them committees here, it's more like a work planning group that the board member is a part of that group. And so we are looking for somebody from each community to serve for their schools, to help and support. What we're looking at is other things that we can do, problems with the plan, things that we can add to the plan, and just be a part of helping to make maybe budgetary decisions and recommendations through that process.
So before we take nominations or volunteers, does anyone have any questions? Seeing none. Starting with the Bodenham Community School.
I would volunteer for that.
So you like to make a motion?
Do you want to do a motion of the whole slate, or do you want to do?
We can do the slate, sure. So, all right. Anyone want to challenge Hudson? Seeing none, we will move on to the Woodside School. So we are looking for somebody from Topsom.
I'll do it, said.
Anyone want to fight, Kim? No? And so then we have Mount Air Middle School and the high school, which must be any town can represent. So
Okay, he's ready for you.
who wants a chance to work?
Like the voice over there.
Any interest or volunteers or nominations? No, one of each. Okay.
Chris got someone.
And then the middle school. If nobody else wants to do it, I will do it. Mary,
You said you would do it if nobody else was.
that's what I said, yeah, yeah, but
If it's remote, I would love to do it, but if it's not remote, depending on the day. So.
I don't know if it's remote or not.
Is it remote?
I think the principal will oblige to have there.
Could be.
All right,
Old home.
all right, Mary, you got it.
So I would move, we appoint Hudson Hayward to the Bodenham Tier 1 Committee for Bodenham Community School, Kim Pacelli for the Tier 2 Committee at Woodside Elementary School, Holly Kavanaugh for the Tier 2 Committee at Mount Arad High School, I'm sorry, and Mary Hobson, the Tier 1 Committee at Mount Arad Middle School.
Second.
So it was moved and seconded by Frank.
Who's at middle school?
Mary.
Mary.
Kavanaugh I went high school to middle school. I went the order that we went, so I jumped around. Apologies. Correct.
Yep.
These are not annual plans. I just wanted to say it out loud or ask the question, would the board member be volunteering to be our representative for each year that the plan is in existence, or would this be like an annual appointment?
It would be
Annual, so come back next year and
yeah.
certainly people could do it again if they chose to, but it wouldn't be like you're on in perpetuity, like if somebody had a 3-year plan and you wanted to go on that.
It's a lifetime commitment. Thank you for the clarification. Does that change anybody's interest? It's only for the 1 year. Okay. So it was moved and seconded. Any other comments? No, he's already locked in. No, we did it in like August or something. So we'll get it all synced up next year. We'll try to sync it up next year. Oh, yes. Hudson did. Hudson made the motion and Frank seconded. Okay, all those in favor? That looks unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for volunteering. All right, so thank you. So next, our final visitors. We will get to 6.3. I would be looking for a motion in accordance with board policy to consider approval of an out-of-state trip by the Woodside One-Wheelers to Boston, Massachusetts, November 12th, 2024.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Hudson, seconded by Frank. Do you want to say something? All right. I mean, you came, so.
And if I could, I just wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Ricky, the principal at Woodside Elementary School, and since I don't often get to do this, I just want to recognize this as Eric Pulsifer, a former Mount Ara High School graduate. Also a veteran PE teacher in our district, the founder and coach of the Woodside One-Wheelers, and a Maine State PE Teacher of the Year is on his resume.
There you go.
And he is doing some amazing work, not necessarily with STEM and data, but we're teaching kids how to juggle, ride unicycles, walk on stilts, and we do work with scientists occasionally. So we've got a couple of big requests for you. I think we have to do one at a time. So we'll just talk very briefly that the Boston Celtics have invited us to perform for their team and their crowd of thousands. And so we would like to accept their invitation. And Eric can talk to you a little bit more about that. We have a pretty high standard for our performance standards. So what we're really asking for is your approval if we choose to accept their invitation. But we want to make sure that we're sending a group of really well-trained performance level members, and we're still seeking volunteers for that. So it's not a guarantee that we'll perform. We're very close to getting to that level, but I wanted to put that out there in advance. And then Eric, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so we did this last year. We did the performance last year, pregame show for the Celtics. It was one of those bucket lists from me. And they asked us to come back this year. The date is November 12th, which is a school night, which is we were definitely hesitant to even want to do that because we're talking about absenteeism. But it's one of those things where anytime you do a weekend game, the prices go from $70 a ticket to $150 a ticket. And that just prices it out of being able to do that. I told the kids, my expectation is they are in school the next day. That's my expectation for them. My goal is to have at least 20 unicycle riders to go down the performance. And we have that out there right now, and we're starting commitments to go. So it's really a cool experience. We were underneath the tunnel last year, and you just walk out and here's thousands of people, and just be on the court was really a cool experience. And Brian, there's video out there. There's Brian Scalabrini dancing to our song as we're performing on the court, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of about the Boston Celtics. Like I said, November 12th. My goal is kids will probably just be dismissed 1 o'clock to get down there by 5. So it's a half day, and then the next day it's a late start, which is good. So, any questions on it?
No. All those in favor? That looks unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to stay there,
stay
we'll
right
get to the next one. I would be 6.4, a motion in accordance with board policy to consider approval of an overnight trip by Woodside One-Wheelers to Philadelphia, PA and Washington, DC, July 1st, 2026 through July 5th, 2026.
So move. Seconded?
Moved and seconded.
Thanks about that. So Eric is a planner, and this is a very intentional date. This will represent the 250th anniversary of our country. And it happens to be the actual dates. So July 4th will be in Philadelphia.
No, other way around.
Sorry, July 3rd will be in Philadelphia. And perform one of our favorite cities to bring kids to for historical purposes. We always have an amazing experience with the people of Philadelphia, of course, like the cradle of our democracy there. And then to be in Washington, D.C. on July 4th for that particular date would be a pretty special, lifelong ambition, I think, for kids to be in a place like that on a date like that. So we recognize that planning a trip like this takes some time and some effort. We would want your theoretical support. We never ask for money for this sort of thing. We'll do all of our own fundraising, but this would be a pretty special opportunity, with some historical significance.
Yeah, so this,
What is it,
Okay.
there's this engagement, is this like all ages?
so this is gonna be, we move to performance level giraffe riders, or invited to go on the trips, and some still walkers to go along the way. And people who may not know our group, giraffe is a 5-foot unicycle, so they ride those over a couple miles of a parade and stuff like that. So the parade, how this kind of works is there's a company called Under the Sun Productions, and they reach out to us, or we reach out to them, and we say, oh, we want to come and do this performance, and they say, okay, yeah, come and do it. This time, it was kind of neat because they moved the 4th of July parade in Philadelphia to July 3rd, which actually goes right past Independence Hall, which is really a cool experience. We did learn a lesson. Giraffe unicycles do not go well on cobblestones. So when we go this time, we'll be riding on short unicycles on that one. And then when we go to Philadelphia, Washington, DC on July 4th, we'll ride all tall unicycles there, as long as the weather is good for us. So those two parades are kind of special parades, as Rick mentioned. The 250th anniversary, it's going to be a great trip for the kids, and they're already looking forward to it. A little update from our trip from April. We woke up, well, actually, the night before I looked at the weather, it's like, oh, 45-mile-an-hour winds on unicycles. So we ended up riding our short unicycles. The kids did a great job. We had a 25 to 35-mile-an-hour sustained wind, 45-mile-an-hour gust right in our faces the whole way down the road. So they did an amazing job with it. Our still walkers stayed up, which was good. But it was definitely a great experience. The kids did an amazing job. We did go over to Arlington National Cemetery when the kids got to watch the change in the guard. And then we did a quick tour around the city that day before. So any questions?
So I think back to the question of who's going to the parade, it'll be probably 3rd graders and up.
They have to, so that one will probably be 4th going into 5th is my guess, and up. It depends. I mean, that'll be open to, but they have to be a giraffe level rider to do that. So it
So
won't.
there's performance level,
Yeah.
like tests you have to pass to demonstrate your suitability for.
I mean, I think I know some 3rd graders who may have passed that test.
Yeah, there are some.
There are some, yes. But it's one of those things, usually 3rd grade, maybe going into 4th grade, as far as that goes. Yeah. But usually it's about 4th to 5th grade, they usually go and drop. Some of them are a little bit younger.
And then you have some middle school and high schoolers that come back and keep going.
Yeah, so we'll actually have, right now, I'm actually very excited. We actually have, I think it's 13 high schoolers in our program, which is amazing. We actually have up to 96 kids in our program this year. So we have a strong, all the kids that year are now juniors, will be just graduated, and we have a large sophomore class. So it's kind of a neat trip as they end their well career. So.
Cool.
Yes.
Not a question, more of a
Yep.
comment.
Yep.
As a native Philadelphian,
Yep.
and a fellow mom of a one-sider, or the well.
Yeah.
This is fabulous. This is so exciting. What an experience. Wow, I'm just in awe and astonished and very honored to be a part of the district that has something like this. So good work.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jim.
I just,
I can hear you.
just to connect back to the workforce ready, I keep going back to the guiding principles. Perseverance, creative and practical problem solver, be it a 45-mile-an-hour wind, a responsible and involved citizen to participate in celebrations around democracy. Rick, as you tie the whole thing up. Again, then and what a wonderful opportunity. And how do we work towards progress, not perfection, making this kind of experience available across the board? Bravo, brava, wonderful.
Like stories too, so I'll share a story of perseverance, innovation, and social skills. One of our still walkers lost a tab or the cap at the bottom of the sill, which was needed for the performance in Washington this year. And we didn't have the toolkit handy. And so, you know, you can't go on the performance if you don't have your equipment ready. And so we kind of quickly scanned around and we found that there was the classic car guys who were going to be in the parade. So somebody with a 1965 Mustang happened to be fiddling around in the trunk. And we approached him and said, we sort of figured maybe a classic car guy has a toolkit. And so the guy lent us his toolkit and helped us repair a giant set of stilts and saved the day so the students. But that's sort of like the little stories that happen all along the way for events like this. You know, it's not just about something happening perfect the way we planned it, but how do you solve the problem in the moment, and who do you solve it with? You've got to like, you know, take the risk and ask the questions.
And that's computational.
Right. And I forgot, I was gonna mention this. So we're walking along in the Washington Mall, and this lady is in a wheelchair, this other lady is with her. She goes, "Come, you gotta meet this lady." And she had just received, I believe, either Presidential Medal of Honor or the Congressional Medal of Honor the night before. So for our kids, she was in World War II. So just for our kids to have that experience as far as that goes. And as far as tying to STEM, I don't know if people know Steve Spaeth, who is one of our assistant coaches. He's been around now for like 12 years. We tie a lot of science. We tie a lot of it. We talk about, you know, pressure in everything he knows. If you want to talk about unicycle science, talk to Steve, because he knows a lot of it and he studies it. He's a scientist by trade. And we've done presentations before, and one of his goals for our group is to try to get to the Smithsonian, perform in the Smithsonian. So I'm trying. So you never know, but it's more than just performing. It's life lessons for these kids. So.
Right.
So can we go?
Yes. So all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Have fun.
Yes, you can go.
We should have them wheel around in here. All right, so one more trip. Looks like in accordance with board policy to consider approval of an out of the country trip by the Mount Ararat High School 10th through 12th grade science and leadership students to the Galapagos
Don't move.
in 2026. Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Do you have a question or are you just ready to vote?
Well, the discussion.
You want to discuss? Yeah, yeah. Was that why you were raising your hand? I didn't know if you were just
Yeah,
voting.
I just am so incredulous that they are going to the Galapagos. I mean, that is like a bucket list thing for me to do someday, and it's amazing that
It's really
these-
hard to get there.
Yeah, that this opportunity is available to these kids. I think it will change their lives for sure. So very exciting.
Anyone else? So they're full. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Give us some photos, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the next item here is to consider a first reading of policy GBGH, GBGB, workplace bullying. I'm going to turn it over to,
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded.
All right, so,
Discussion.
cover sheet really says it all. This came up during the Title IX review as a policy we don't have. It was decided we should have it, and it's not substantively different than the MSMA sample. I would like to point out that our eagle-eyed reader, Becky, caught two non-substantive typos that I have corrected for the next read. Nothing major that makes a difference, but there will be slight adjustments then. But yeah, any questions about this policy?
All right, all those in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. Next, to consider first reading of JIE, support and reasonable modifications for students with pregnancy or related conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is another one. During the Title IX review, we realized that our current policy, JFF, married and pregnant students, is older than many board members and woefully outdated relative to the current state of law and custom when it comes to pregnant students. So we looked at the MSMA sample, cleaned it up relative to our district's wording and whatnot, and are bringing it forward. The idea that this will replace JFF once we get this through a second read.
Any questions? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And 6.8, to consider a first reading of policy KHBA, revenue enhancement.
So moved.
Second.
So yeah, this is the third policy for tonight. Heidi brought this to us actually when Ryan was chairing the committee last year as part of the look at KHB, sorry, not KHB, it's KHA, the revenue, facilities rates and things like that. She had brought us the Yarmouth policy, which had an extra section outside of the MSMA sample in our own policy about revenue enhancement. So we decided that we wanted to tackle that as a separate policy. And so here it is. We workshopped it a little bit and we did review it in relation to KHB advertising and FF naming of school facilities to make sure that sort of as a universe of policies, they're aligned and saying the same things and sort of putting us into the same procedural processes. And I think we're in a good spot and Heidi was happy, so we were happy.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you to the policy committee for noticing those missing policies and cleaning that up. Appreciate you. 6.9, to consider action to approve an amendment to the negotiated agreement of the MSAD number 75 Principals Association.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. But yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
Thank you. So yes, after I had sent this off to our accounts payable, Chris Davis, we noticed some errors and we needed to update the salary scale. So that is one of the amendments, and then to change the language for EPL. And those are the only two changes that we needed to make.
Yeah, and just for historical reference, this was negotiated and agreed to just this past summer. So did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify that the adjustments to the salary scale were more or less accounted for in the budget, right? This doesn't take us outside of what our budget was supposed to cover.
That's correct. It was more of in the contract. It just hadn't been updated, but it had already been in the budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We moved 6:10. So the next thing is the board chairs report. It's like a reminder that the facilities tour is going to be November 13th. We put out a schedule. If anyone has any questions, we can, I can answer them or Andy can answer them. I hope you guys can make it.
And we're driving ourselves again, right? Like that's the structure?
Yes.
Just double, I knew you talked about it at our last meeting. I just needed to refresh my memory. Thank you.
And then we have a recap of the actually October 10th board workshop. It was just last week. I thought we had a really good conversation really about some aspects of our board membership that we don't always focus on, and it was a combination of sort of practical and policy and theoretical and stories. And I've gotten a few reviews. I think generally it was considered worthwhile. We talked about Region 10, Mary Meeting Adult Ed, the Orion, and some technology pieces. We also talked a little bit about board chair responsibilities. With the technology and the board chair piece, I think we were going to have further conversations that will, and workshops, we'll be doing onboard and some other things. And we will also talk about document organization and control and flow and naming, and that will probably be involve board chairs conversation. So have any questions or anything they want to add? Let's see. What's next?
I guess
Yes.
just to say that on action, I found the conversation very helpful, going to the advisory, the meeting last night of the adult ed, Mary Meeting Adult Ed. So having had that conversation, prior to that, I had in mind what my responsibilities were and the role, but it it was a very helpful conversation. Thanks for doing that.
That's good to hear. And I would also say that it was nice to have our attorney, Peter Lowe, at the conversation to make sure we stayed on track, and also just gave us all a little bit more exposure to working with him and what his philosophy is. And I think it was nice to see him in a low stakes setting. And I do have on here to announce the November 21st workshop. We will hold a workshop on the 21st. It will actually probably not cover on board. It's going to be changed to a strategic planning session with our consultant. They're going to come and make a presentation, and I'm not sure if there'll be any voting we have to carry over to the next board meeting. I don't know exactly what the presentation is going to be on, but that will be the topic of the November 21st. And to reiterate, when there's a workshop, there's food. So,
Real quick, I just want to say that's really exciting, getting our first
Yeah.
interaction with the strategic planning. So I'm jazzed about that.
I mean, I don't know if you're covering that, Heidi, in your update, but
Sorry, I had to, so.
you know more about that workshop than
The
than I
steering
do,
committee?
but
Yeah.
the November 21st.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, an update on the October 9th policy committee meeting.
Yeah, so we had a really good meeting. I'm gonna go get my agenda up 1 second. We had, yeah, a really good meeting. We got through a good amount of things. We obviously brought 3 policies to you guys tonight for first read based on that. There's a couple that we approved at a committee that we're just making sure all revisions are up to snuff, you know, through the administration and or lawyers, depending. So we'll probably have a couple more policies coming for first read at our next meeting, coming out of that, at our next board meeting, coming out of that same policy committee meeting. We also had some good discussions about attendance. We looked at our attendance policies and didn't really have any conclusions on what the policy committee's recommendations on changes are, but sort of talked about it with Heidi as how can the policy committee and the board more broadly help support the work that she's doing with her administrators. So we're sort of expecting Heidi to work with the principals council and the district leadership team and bring some thoughts about what might be helpful to her. And we talked about a lot of the same stuff we talked about tonight, right? Kids stay home sick, they go on a 3-day vacation, all of a sudden they're at 10 days. What does that mean? You know, and again, knowing that we're dealing with some state requirements, obviously our flexibility is limited. So that was good. We talked about the student code of conduct and where that will sort of come. So that'll be something we talk about at our next meeting in a more cleaned up form, but that was really good. Yeah, we talked about a few more things that'll come forward down the line. But yeah, good meeting. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything from the committee, but it was very nice getting everyone together.
Thank you.
I want to give Hudson a shout out for all the work he's done to, like, the meta work about the operations of the committee is really paying off. So when he shoulder taps you to help you figure out your committee, listen to the man. He knows what he's doing. Good things will happen. That's all I'm going to
Yeah.
say. It may scare you a little bit, but good things will happen.
So we will move on to the October 15th Finance Committee meeting. And Ron,
Yeah.
your report?
All right, so we met on Tuesday and we were able to review some minor adjustments to the goal that we are looking to push forward for the committee have a goal in place. We felt it served us really well last cycle, and so we wanted to look at where we were headed now and any adjustments to that. So that's what I handed around before the meeting this evening, and the intent, I think, was with that, it was just to share it with everybody and then see if we can maybe just get a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of support of it, not an official
Maybe
vote,
we
but,
should vote to adopt it.
okay. So do you want to do that now, or do you want me to finish the update and then? keep going?
You can finish.
Okay. So in addition to that, then we talked about our upcoming public budget forum that is scheduled for November 12th. Kind of what we did, we actually, in discussion, we also had our planned December 9th meeting as part of that and tried to understand the best approach to the preseason work in effect before the real budget season gets kicked off. And we had a really good discussion about the best of ways to do it, but I think we all came together on the fact that having this budget forum and working harder to try to drive attendance and awareness this go round to try to build upon what we did last year was the best thing to do. And so we've started to do that. We identified different community members and representatives and all kinds of people to reach out to. Heidi has already sent out information. We've sent the information to town managers, select boards and things, and we've got some responses back to try to drive some participation there. So really just looking to start the conversation with the community early this year, knowing that it's always a tough, difficult process, and we want to hear thoughts from everyone as we're going into it. So we landed on that. We're keeping that date of the November 12th, and would just ask anybody that may be out there listening to please come and join us that evening here at the forum from 6 to 8, and ask the rest of the board to share that information with anybody you know that may be interested in coming and participating, and to think about bringing, solutions to this, to the challenges and kind of your priorities and things. So those are the two other big things that we talked about. And I think we know that we should be receiving our audit probably the end of this month or some point early November. So we're looking forward to getting that. And that was most of the topics. So I think with that, I'll hand it back to Amy to maybe vote on the goal.
Great, thank you. So I would look for a motion that we adopt as a goal for this budget season, that to conduct a process that creates increased and earlier public awareness in developing a sustainable budget supporting the MSAD number 75 mission, and to provide for the needs of our district with minimal impact on the local contribution.
So moved.
Second.
And any comments? Questions? Hudson?
I would just say I've appreciated the finance committee's discussions about this, and it's not a radical deviation from last year's mission, but I really respect and like the focus on a sustainable budget, looking beyond just this year and to future years. So I want to thank you, Ryan, for helping foster those conversations.
Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Next we've added item 7.6 to hear a report on the October 16th Mayor Meeting Adult Education Cooperative Board meeting. Did I get that right? Cooperative Board? Oh, I'm sorry, I crossed it off. I crossed it off early. First, we will do the October 17th Facilities Committee. Andy.
Almost. I thought you skipped me there for a second. No public comment. We got an update on the RFQ process for Facilities Master Plan. Sean has a draft that he showed us at the meeting, and we agreed to get that out on the street with some minor edits that he received from, the facilities. Somebody help me with my memory. There was somebody that reviewed his RFP as well.
Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria, who she's
On the
with.
DOE.
DOE, yes, thank you. But anyway, minor comments, and he's gonna get that out and hopefully get proposals back from folks, AE firms, by November 15th. And the hope is to get results from this facilities master plan by June 2025 to be set for our next budget cycle for the next school year. So good progress on that. Bodenham asbestos abatement update, it's gone. It's awesome. And we have insulation back in the school. So they did a great job with that. And CHA might be doing a brief report to consider next steps. We don't have any immediate action on any other systems or concerns there, but because it's an old school, they're going to take a look at some of the things that Sean had mentioned prior, like HVAC systems and fire systems, but that might also be covered by the facilities master plan. So more to come on that later. Bodenham Playground update. There's really no update. We're still trying to get a hold of a site contractor that did the initial work. The good news is the grass is growing lush and green and the soil seems stable. So there's no immediate, need or problem, but still worried about some water ponding down bottom. So we'll just keep that as a tickler on the list of things to do. The middle school building envelope project, the contractor was receptive to some issues that facilities had brought up with the oil canning or the racking of the panels. Some of them were fixed and things look a little better now, but we were also told that, these metal panels do that. They move in the with the weather temperature, and so it's expected. It's just the nature of the metal panels. So it does not look terrible because Sean had them fix some panels, so that was good news. The vapor barrier is nearly installed almost all the way around the building now, with the exception of one other area that had some identified water damage. They're replacing the sheathing, so see a small change order on that. They've been chipping away a little bit at that, stuff like that. So the work is progressing nicely. He's a little bit more satisfied with their progress because they've been receptive to, some corrective work that has been identified. So all in all, they're on track with the total project to be complete by the summer of 2026. Phase 1, they're hoping to have done by, I think, the middle of November, around November 11th. They just started painting the canopy, like the entrance to the middle school and stuff. So they're advancing some of their other work. So that's good news. And there was an update on the Cadence Mobile Home Park. The work has started to install the service line to their park. It's all been on private property. I think on November 11th, they're planning on doing the directional drill that'll get the pipe across to the school's property, where they're gonna be doing the tie-in. So that's going as expected, nothing major to report there. And capital maintenance projects and expenses, he's pretty much spent all the money. He did a great job doing that. So we're on the next round, the next batch for 2026 projects. His early numbers are already projecting, something that's not reality. It's 700,000, but it's close because I think some of that pavement work can be identified to be utilized under the existing bond money. So we'll wait that out and see where that, so maybe 550, I think we were talking about in the meeting, is what the early numbers look like. But that was his first draft at some of those projects would be like Bowden Central, some asphalt crack sealing, Bodenham with the ADA bathroom, Harpswell, there's a main door entrance replacement, the middle school, some flooring. I guess it's in dire need of flooring throughout, but he was going to target the entry walk and the main office. Middle school also needs some pavement crack sealing in the back. Williams Cone, this is the big one, 280,000 for roofing is projected, and Woodside fire alarm, 45,000. So some of these things in a boiler at building 376. So if you're coming out of the front door of the middle school, it's the building across the way to the left. Not many people probably know or have been in that building, but that needs a boiler system. So, or we need to make a decision to not use the building. What else do we have to report? Yes, please don't forget the facilities tour. Amy sent out the agenda for that. Harpswell Community School, November 13th at 7:45 is the start time for that. And we also have knowledge that there's results for the Woodside Elementary Building Envelope report that has been done, and that'll be reported at our next meeting. It wasn't an agenda item, so we didn't discuss it at this meeting, but that'll be on the list for the next one. So yeah, a lot happening with facilities. Sean's doing a great job. He's tracked a lot of work this past year. So, so that's it. Any questions?
Andy, when I hear you mention horizontal drilling and I go back to the workforce ready, is there any way, or has there ever been thought of, that'll be happening right out, I mean, close to the middle school, within walking distance?
It's
Am
on
I-
a holiday though, so
Oh.
like the kids don't get to see it. So it's November 11th. It would be, maybe, hopefully. Yeah, Veterans Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those kinds of things, the science involved in horizontal drilling to make
Mhm.
that possible and hit what you want to hit.
Mhm. Boy, I have some pictures for you, Jim.
Yeah,
We do a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity. Hopefully somebody grabs some photos of that one. So, good point.
Okay. Now we're gonna get to the adult education cooperative board meeting.
So we had a meeting for the adult ed group, and it was at Bath Morris High School, which is the first time I'd been in that school. It's quite nice, and Alan always does a really nice job. We have pizza and water, and it's always quite nice salad. He puts on a good show. And everybody had a little yellow folder with some handouts that he made of different events that are going on, and he does a nice job. And so then he went on with what has happened in this year, and they had in August they got their book out, and I don't know what everybody must get one because he says he sends out like 30,000 or 35,000, which is a lot of the catalogs, but. And they had more than 1,000 enrollments in 3 weeks as soon as they sent that out. I mean, they are just really popular, and they have they've already started for their spring summer catalog, which comes out in January. So they are just going great gangbusters. They have dozens of course proposals, more than they can handle. People are calling them up. They're not going out and soliciting. People are calling them up for coursework and everything. And so they're really doing a great job of getting the word out there and putting their, all these different classes and addressing such a wide array of things. It's amazing, with a big focus on art. There's a lot of art things in there. So anyway, basically they say that if, so now it's almost like a thing that people really want to be in their catalog, so they're having to turn people down, and they're saying, like, if you give us space, we'll let you be in our catalog. So they're being able to do some bartering now with this because they're so such a big hit. Anyway, they're offering classes at 25 different locations, fencing club, anywhere. They said People Plus, just all kinds of places all over this area that they're offering their adult ed classes. And then then we had a person come in who was talking about, well, first of all, he talked about their graduation and what a really nice event that is, and how it just is so moving to go to that, and that he encourages everyone to go to those kinds of events. So anyway, it's June 11th. You put out a thing if anybody wants to put that on a calendar. Evidently, I haven't been, but I am going to go to this one because he said it is really an incredible experience. So I'm going to try to do that. But they're just really changing lives, this program is. I really got that sense. And then the other thing, they're partnering with different people like HiSET, which wasn't anything I'd ever heard of. But anyway, it's a transition to college. So it's actually people who get out of high school and don't know really what they're going to be doing, and then they go to HiSET. So you know about that. But anyway, they were there, and they've been really reaching out to people and starting to grow that program. So they have grants that they have that the people can get to get credits, and they have a lot of the dual enrollment people that come in with, have them have credits to get their first years of school out of the way in this program. So a nice partnership with them. They have they have a new CNA and driver's ed program for the ELL students. They have quite a big population of ELL students, and they have over on the they have 2 remote ELL teachers that are teaching this. They're high school teachers. Peggy Callahan is one of them. And so they're the people that are coming into Maine who have English as their second language can take English courses here, get certified. And they're trying to get them certification for CNAs and driver's ed. And those are very popular courses for that group of people, which is wonderful that they offer that. And they also partner with the Lincoln County Recovery Center. That would in their art and using art as a healing tool, and they do courses there. And so they've had a lot of success with that, of people with sort of drug, I don't know. Anyway, the people are recovering from drug addiction, and they join into this program with using art, and that's been a big hit and a lot of enrollment in that. And they have also done a big thing with summer camps for children and for younger kids, and that has been a big hit. And that's been doing cooking, science, fencing. They partnership with Maine Science and Math so to offer summer camp programs for kids, and they get that out early. So all of their programs, they reach all kinds of different populations, and they're really a fun group of people, and they're excited about what they do, and it's a very uplifting event. Go to their meetings. Anybody have any questions? Jim, do you want to add to something?
I just add on a couple of things. The conversation around the premier membership that they offer. They gave a brief. They have 28 participants in that. I once again asked some questions about it and asked if there were others on the advisory board for whom there was concern. There was one other member of the board who voiced an unease with the program, and the conversation is ongoing. Small number, $25 a year, and they do not have early access to registration, early access to the catalog, and some events just for them. But the conversation ongoing. Another piece, and Hudson, I'd go back to the some of the policy pieces. The one on advertising. They made comment when the numbers were asked about how many catalogs. They print between 35 and 45,000 copies of the catalog. It is direct mail to every household in the communities they serve. And they hear from people, and I don't know if it's true for others or just for Mary and I, but it doesn't just disappear. It stays around as reading material. It's on the coffee table. And the conversation came up as they grow the partnerships. And if you've looked through the catalog, I'm flipping through it now, there's practically a full page, Maine Pines Racket and Fitness. One of the things they're saying to partners, one of the benefits of this is a direct mail advertisement with a comment, please contact Maine Pines Racket and Fitness Club directly to inquire about classes and memberships and events, et cetera. So it's going to, as this conversation, the timeliness, Amy, of the workshop you proposed and we held a week ago, it'll be a place to look. One other thing, I guess that's it, but just on fire, the amount of good stuff, and mark your calendars, June 11th, wasn't it June 11th, 2025? The impact and the stories, once again, from kids, with the high set replacing the GED, that pathway on to work and career, the things that are being done through Marion Community Adult Education absolutely on fire, doing wonderful things for the community. But as it grows, an awareness of that relationship and how it grows will be important.
Right, and to just recap for people who weren't at the workshop, it's a creature of MSAD 75. It's our program.
So to speak.
One other thing,
The only place in the whole country that has an artist in residence. I thought that was very cool.
The only adult ed in-
Support an artist in residence, this adult ed program does. And they fund it and it's the only place in the whole country that does that.
They provide a workshop space for a month residency with the opportunity for community members to drop in and see what's going on and talk art. Again, it was just what a flow of wonderful opportunities. There's one piece that just was so, they're supporting or offering it's gonna be a performance piece, having fun during times of war. Just the idea of growing up. Not a few number of the new Mainers have lived through situations that I never have. And just the concept, the counterpoint of having fun during times of war. But to hear a first person artistic reflection on that, it's incredible stuff going on. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, Mary. So superintendent's report.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead, Jim, first? He's going to talk about Actum. Did you want to talk about Actum?
Thank you to the district and to the board and Heidi for the opportunity to attend the ACTEM conference, the Association of Computer Technology Educators of Maine, in Augusta on August 10th and 11th. Last year, I attended as well and reported after that AI was the shiny object syndrome. And I saw a level of maturity. There were some presentations this year where artificial intelligence, it was more practical use. If I would encourage, Yarmouth has the big players in AI, Magic School with no support or suggestion that Magic School is a solution. Educators need to see that each individual can't go and find it for themselves, but magicschool.ai, just to go play and learn. It's a free registration. When you sign in and create an account, you can say you're an administrator. I've said I'm other. They don't have board member, which is interesting. And I would think might be worth talking to them about. But it provides this breadth of tools that teachers can respond to. And Yarmouth has fully invested in Magic School. So if members of the Technology Advisory Committee, when that gets up and going, were to want to go visit a place, there was a presentation by a science teacher named Matthew Quigley Brian Quigley from Yarmouth on how he was using these tools. So it provided that model, not just, isn't this a cool tool, but here's how I'm using it to make me a more effective teacher. It followed that there's a group called EdTech Teacher that did a presentation. There's going to be a summit in 2025 at Bentley University. One of the threads will be AI policy and leadership. Matthew Druitt-Card, a former board member, Topsom, I believe Topsom resident, gave a presentation on the work that's going on in the district where he serves as curriculum coordinator in Dexter. And he shared with us, and Hudson, I'll pass this on to you, a sample policy. There was mention, people are looking, how are schools wrapping their arms around it? Mention was made, Courtney Graffius, who is a technology lead and library media person in Portland, mentioned in one of the sessions that they had put AI into policy form. When I go and look, I find that the paragraphs have been added to student honesty and student computer and internet use. Paragraphs, just making clear, this is a full document. So that was interesting to see how that goes. Several districts were called out by the conference organizers having sent a large number of participants. I would ask, and again, this comes to that technology integration advisory committee coming together and getting to work. I would hope that another year there'd be a more organized effort of the district going as a team to sit together at lunchtime to reflect on what was going to plan in advance, which workshops would be the most effective and purposeful for this district. A tremendous value in terms of professional development over 2 days, understanding the responsibility of taking a teacher or other professional out of the classroom or out of the schools. But I would hope that the value could be returned. I brought in a couple of books, and these I picked up I was supported by the district again in an AI workshop that ACTEM and META, the main Educational Technology Directors Association, did last year. And I'd love if anybody, this is what teachers will look for, the AI classroom. It is like a recipe book but these are the kinds of things, this is where AI is at. You know, here's what you can do. But please, if you'd like to take these, Learning Revolution, Carl Hooker has been to Maine. He's an educator from Texas that I've known for quite a while, but he is a national voice on this. But please, I'd hope, take them away to see what's going on. All in all, a very valuable opportunity to sit with Tom Driscoll, who is with with the Maine Mathematics and Science Alliance, leading the Workforce Ready program, and was a wonderful opportunity as well. So glad to see MSAD 75. You go back, Data Over Cable was born out of this district and Brunswick's work in the community of learners in the mid-90s. No cable companies had ever come together before. No data had gone over. Harpswell, the work out of Harpswell with Harpswell Public TV supporting it was so to see that coming back again here to the district is wonderfully exciting. So it was great. Thanks for sending me.
Thanks. That's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. So I sent out earlier this evening the current enrollment for the October 1st child count. Currently, we're at 2,301 students, which last year around the same time, October 1st child count, we were at 2,314 students. So we're holding steady with a few minor reductions. And then also our audit, our business office has been working diligently to get them the information they need in order to complete the audit. And we are hoping to see that by the end of October, early November. We do have a waiver currently with the state till October 31st, but if needed, we are able to go a little bit longer, but hopefully we will not need to do that. Amy had mentioned that on November 21st, we're going to have a board workshop, and the purpose of this is basically our steering committee is going to be making recommendations to discuss our vision, mission, and core values, bringing that forward from our work that is coming up with our steering committee this week, and then also in November. So we'll have a few things going on. I'm really excited to bring that forward. It's a great step for us to be heading in that direction. I feel like we've been talking about it for a really long time, so we are almost there. And then also today I sent out some letters regarding Say Something app that we are currently implementing. So hopefully you were able to see all of that. We received our first tip, was not a a threat of violence to the schools, but we received the first tip to a situation within 30 minutes. I was quite shocked. We hadn't even done the training yet. So it works, and we are happy to have that. So to our community and to our parents and students, it's always important to say something, and we want you to report to a trusted adult first. If you don't have a trusted adult, this app is available, and it is anonymous. And then also to accept the resignation of Nate Bisson, who was a groundskeeper for the district. And I wish him the best in his future.
So, thank you. So that brings us to the calendar announcements, which you can read in your packet. Becky told me today we have eight board members registered for the conference next week and 2 staff members. So we should be able to have lunch and talk about which session to go to. And that leaves the one executive session.
I move that pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with the Mary Meeting Teachers Association.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.